Good morning, Tony Dottino here, founder of the USA Memory Championship, and certainly moving along and prepping for our 27th USA event, as well as continuing to learn and study what are the impacts that we have in our bodies that work as one system, that help maintain our cognitive function as well as our overall well-being. And years ago, I learned from Tony Buzan, as my mentor at the time, the importance of a good heart and how it connects to a good brain, and how a good brain connects to a good heart. And so Tony was significantly ahead of the world in recognizing that our heart and brains are like one system. And the importance of a heart that is obviously pumping blood through your body and the rhythm of your breathing, and how well that system's working together. You're breathing, you're running, you're talking. You recognize that. Obviously, the blood flow that's going through your brain was equally important to the amount of oxygen that it contained and how well that you were able to keep your brain healthy. So to see an article in the April issue of New Scientist magazine, the heart-mind connection, it's kind of like bringing back some of the lessons that he taught years ago. And as I've always said, he was always 5 years at least ahead of what science seems to be. And I often asked him, where do you get this? How do you learn this stuff? My goodness, you're so far ahead of the world in this. And to see something here years later talking about the connection of the heart and the brain. It brings back a lot of memories and a lot of his coaching and mentoring lessons, and the fact that we think about the heart and the importance of blood flow through it and the interruptions of different heart conditions and how that impacts your thinking and possibly depression. So here, for example, in the article, it was talking about people that have heart attacks often go into a state of depression or have a level of anxiety after they're recovering. So we're learning more about how we connect the two, and it's good to see that there's now some efforts to connect the heart-brain to cognition. And though it doesn't just come from our brain, it comes from the combination, as they're learning, is one system. And you say, my goodness, it's in the world of specialists. We have a heart specialist, a cardiologist. We have a brain specialist, could be a neurologist or a neurosurgeon, and we break these things up and we treat them as separate pieces. And yet, what the science and the discoveries are telling us is that cognition doesn't just come from the brain. It's a dynamic combination of the body, which is now in the heart, and the brain, which is the whole regulating system, and how those two connect. And as a headline says here, a heart-brain connection, if miswired, can adversely affect your ability to make decisions. So I found this to be a very, very interesting article that basically is a little bit tardy in the lessons that Tony Buzan was addressing more than 5 years ago. Every time your heart beats, so let me give you a few of the fundamentals here. Every time your heart beats, it sends a signal to the brain indicating how fast and or how strong your heart is beating. Now, we all know that that's important, how many beats in your heart, when they go for blood pressure tests, when they go for EKGs, they're monitoring the beats of your heart. The brain uses the signal to regulate the heart. So the system is bidirectional, meaning when the brain gets that information, it then comes back to the heart, and so it's like going up and down, two-way street. The heart-brain axis forms a part of the sense that allows your brain to interpret signals of the body. So as the heart is now sending these signals to the brain, and the brain's looking at the whole body, it's your overall the traffic controller. It's trying to control your whole system. As you go into these different mental thoughts and cognitive functions, then it's this combination of the two that are helping you to stay either well, or maybe you're running a race, maybe you're working on a project that's causing you to stress. And it's those two in combination that are trying to keep you well and trying to keep you healthy and keeping you doing what you need to do. The sense that allows your brain to interpret signals from the body is like hunger or the sensation of anxiety. The relationship means there's a potential to diagnose conditions that affect both the brain and the heart more easily. So what's the breakthrough here? You have a neurological issue, you may have a cognitive function issue, may be connected to maybe a heart issue. And maybe there's a heart issue that you've got in terms of the blood flow that's going through your body that may impact, obviously, the blood that's going through your brain. And so we've known that for a number of years, but what this is talking about here is there's a deeper link. There's a much deeper link between the heart and the brain and our overall health than we ever thought was possible. Now, if it impacts your ability to make sensible decisions, might this now then begin to tie into memory, right? We do the USA Memory Championship, and we've never thought to say, well, how's your heart connected to how's your brain? Our mental athletes are training their brain. They're doing different techniques and exercises to train their brain with mnemonics and memory techniques, mind maps, numbering systems. So they're using different ways of helping to retain information. Some of our top athletes are also runners. Some of our top mental athletes are also physically fit. They run, they're on treadmills, or they're out running, a couple of cases, marathons. But we really haven't stopped to think about the connection of a top USA mental athlete along with their exercise routines. Though we know that exercise helps increase the blood flow that goes through your whole body systems, your heart and your brain, to make a stronger connection in that, it's important for people to realize their physical fitness has an impact on the blood flow that goes to the brain, that has an impact on cognitive functions, memory. And so I think it's exciting to see something in New Scientist that's now beginning to address this at a deeper level, and recognizing that cognition doesn't just come from the brain, that our ability to remember, create, speak, it doesn't just come from the brain, but it's more dynamic in its dialogue between the brain and the heart and the brain, and that's a two-way system. And I think the medical profession, in isolating your cardiologist from your neurologist possibly, or maybe a neurosurgeon, we may be on the cusp of helping people in a way that we had never thought possible as it relates to their cognitive function, by looking at their heart health and how their mental states fit with controlling their heart rhythms, and how the heart rhythms help and impact your thinking and your cognitive functioning, and how that wiring together impacts our overall health and our overall life expectancies. So if we step back and think that the heart-brain connection, if it's not working properly, has an impact on cognitive function and an impact on the decisions we make in our life that are sensible, then by golly, we may have found a whole new way of treating the human body. But now the riddle is, so what kind of doctor do we go find that can understand this connection of the two, that can keep us as healthy as possible for as long as we have a purpose and a reason to keep on going? And so again, I think we're on the cusp, as the science and the technologies have allowed us to study the heart, study the brain in deeper levels than we've ever done. I think the lessons that come from that to me are exciting. And so it gets me to step back and think of USA Memory mental athletes and how many of our top performers were also very physically fit and very active in terms of exercise. And we do know that exercise is one of the 6 core factors of maintaining long-term health, mental health, and now we're learning more and more about the connection of why that works the way it does. So it was great reading this yesterday. There's probably a couple more lessons I'm going to pull out of this. So this may be what I'll call part 1 of the heart-brain connection. I think not just from the article, but from life experiences I've had over the years, there's a whole lot more there that we probably have never realized that can impact our overall mental health. And it may start at the heart rather than start at the brain. It's just, we don't know yet. So there's a lot of questions we don't have answers to, but it's exciting to know that people are beginning to start to ask the questions. Middle of the week, see you back here on Friday.